Good evening and welcome to Australia for the Nations Cup here at Albert Park, Melbourne. I'm Chris Gavaney, your host for the series, and this is round 3 of the second season. The upgrade window is just around the corner, but we've got these races to go first, and where better to be than in Melbourne, a circuit which a lot of people seem to like over the years, especially in Formula 1 circles. But enough chitter chatter, let's get straight into it and we can see what the standings look like for Division 2. And Raymond de Angelis leads the way on 41 points, just 9 ahead of Kelvin van der Linde of South Africa. And the pole of Jakob Smirkowski in third place, just 11 back, along with Jose Maria Lopez. Some contenders are really struggling at the minute. Pato Award in 10th on 17 points, but Felix Rosenqvist there 5th on 29. It's a very, very dicey affair, and there are some teams which, well, polar opposites. You've got Christian Pamilio of Argentina on 0 points. He has had a great car, it's just been breaking down on him, and the Wales outfit are trying to find some rhythm here in Australia. And that could be evident when you look at the nation standings, that Canada lead the way on 48 points, just 1 ahead of South Africa, with Italy, who had their early win at the very beginning of the season, and are now been struggling a little bit somewhat, but are still third in the constructors, ahead of Sweden, Poland and Argentina. Wales are down in second for the last, with Scotland at the very bottom, but things can still change oh so easily. And with all of that done, we can now look to the sprint grid for Albert Park, first race here in Australia. And Mexico's Pato Award is on the front row with Ella Lloyd of Wales, with Sebastian Murray in third place for Scotland, Stefan Riquelme from Monaco in fourth, Felix Rosenqvist in fifth, with Paul di Resta sixth, Antonio Felix da Costa in seventh, Felipe Nasr in eighth, with Jakob Smirkowski in ninth, Jose Maria Lopez in 10th, Roman Pelinski in 11th, Raffaele Marcello in 12th, Filipe Albuquerque for Portugal, still struggling with that outfit, in 13th, Roman de Angelis in 14th, with Max Hart from Ireland in 15th, Arthur Leclerc 16th, Alex Dunn 17th, Emilio of Argentina in 18th, with Helio Castroneves alongside him in 19th, with Antonio Giovinazzi in 20th, Elfyn Evans for Wales in 21st, Sheldon van der Linde, after a fantastic result in Hanoi, finds himself in 22nd on the grid, with Rafael Vergomez in 23rd, Nicholas Latifi in 24th, with Marcus Ericsson in 25th, and then Kelvin van der Linde in 26th. And for the very first race of the day, it is to Ryan Ferris in the commentary box.
It's time for the first race of today. It is the Division 2 sprint race, and on pole is Pato Award from Ella Lloyd in second position. The lights come on and they go out, and we're racing here in Melbourne. And it's a great bit away from Lloyd, who takes the lead off of Award, who falls behind Riquelme. Riquelme comes down the inside and takes the lead into turn 1. Rosenqvist and Award having a bit of a jockey for position out of turn 2. But Award managing to hang on to that third position, albeit he was in first. A few dive bombs going on there as they come into turn 3. But it is Stefan Riquelme who makes his way through and out of the first sector, getting it a little bit wide there. That's allowing Lloyd to get a bit of a run as they come around the corner into turn 9. This is the Old Star chicane. Some will say that they missed this chicane, and it's great to see it back. But Lloyd is very much in the hunt here, because she's all over the back end of Riquelme. She's in the slipstream once again. But not quite close enough to make a move into turn 13. But the pair of them starting to put a few car limps already into Award. So out of the final corner and across the line to complete the first lap, and Riquelme getting a good launch off that final corner. The team telling her to apply pressure, hopefully he will make a mistake. Someone who is sort of making a mistake is Felipe Neza, not quite getting turn 1 correct there. And in the background, that's a big dive in the background, and that's... Well, Marcello on fire, who's just been nerfed off, I think, by Leclerc. So Leclerc dives down the inside of the pair of them, and I think he's got front wing damage as well. He has. So Marcello on fire, and you can see the Team Poland car being collected there by... Well, it's both Poland cars making contact with Leclerc. Leclerc going for a tight gap, and, well, Sierakowski had nowhere to go. So that's Marcello, first retirement, after only completing 1 lap, is out of the race. Back at the front, Raquelme starting to stretch his advantage. Lloyd starting to fall into the clutches of Pato Award, but at the same time you have Paul di Resta here going around the outside of Rosenqvist, but Rosenqvist able to hang on to the position. And I think has O'Ward got a problem here, or has he just made a mistake trying to pass Lloyd? But whatever it is, Rosenqvist down the inside and takes that third position away from Pato Award. Rosenqvist up into third, and he's seeming to have the pace here this afternoon. No further investigation regarding that incident we saw earlier. And Rosenqvist already onto the back end of Lloyd. Raquelme 1.9 seconds up the road, and is that an issue there for Lloyd? She's fallen back a couple of positions already, because Rosenqvist and O'Ward have managed to sneak through on her, but it seems like she's still going along. And it is a problem. So, Ella Lloyd, who was looking on for a podium here, it's just not to be for the Welsh driver as she continues to fall backwards. Whether or not she can get back to pit lane at this point in a sprint race, she's not really going to be challenging for the point. So disappointing for Ella Lloyd, but still the race continues. Raquelme with now a 3.3 second advantage over Rosenqvist. Rosenqvist and O'Ward battling away for that second position. As we look further back, this is Sebastian Murray under pressure from Jose Maria Lopez for that 5th position. And further on back, here's Max Hart sending it down the inside of Felipe Albuquerque, and that is 13th position for the Irish driver. His teammate Alex Dunn in 11th position, just outside the points. He's not too far off the back end of Belinsky. And Lloyd has managed to make it back to pit lane. But this will be nothing more than just a test session. Here's Roman De Angelis down the inside of teammate Latifi. And that puts him up into 15th position. De Angelis, one of those drivers who generally tends to come quite strong towards the end of the race, so potentially someone to look out for in the feature race later on. But Raquelme keeping the gap between himself and Rosenqvist pretty much the same. It's still 3.3 seconds at the moment. And in this position, he's pretty much been let off the hook as Raquelme, so providing there isn't any technical gremlins, he's just got to cruise it on home, albeit we have only completed 3 laps of the 15. But they do rattle off quite fast here, and Rosenqvist still hanging on. O'Ward trying to apply the pressure, trying to make up for the poor getaway that cost him the lead. But so far, a strong showing here as well for Team Scotland. De Resta and Murray in 4th and 5th. And De Angelis has lost his gearbox. So after I was bigging up earlier, he's run out of luck. So as he is cradled away, Ella Lloyd back on track. And Max Hart has made a mistake there. He's lost part of his front wing. So Hart, who had made it past Albuquerque for 13th position, was closing in Giovinazzi. And almost collides with Nicholas Latifi. He's got to try and keep himself out the way there. As Castro Neves dives down the inside for 14th. And Antonio Felix da Costa's lost his gearbox. So Da Costa is trolling down the order and he parks it just before pit entry. And Alex Dunn has managed to find his way past Belinsky into turn 1. Ella Lloyd, who has got Leclerc for company. Felix Rosenquist trying to close the gap between himself and Riquelme. He's managed to take a 10th back from Riquelme on that last lap. But he's going to have to find a little bit more pace if he wants to bring that gap down and challenge for the lead with 10 laps remaining. And Jose Maria Lopez, he's retiring now, and that sounds potentially transmission related. And that will promote Felipe Nasr into 6th position at the race, and indeed it is a transmission failure for the Argentine driver. Here's Calvin van der Linde and Sheldon van der Linde, I think it is, down the back end of the field, and after a great showing last time out, it's come crashing back to reality. And Riquelme has indeed responded to Rosenquist. He's now opened the gap out a little bit more. Latifi now under pressure from Elvin Evans, who goes up into 14th position. But back towards the front, O'Ward, who's dropped off the back end of Rosenquist now. He's more than a second away from the Swedish driver, but you can see there he's still not too far away. Actually, I think we're on board with Elvin Evans. In fact, we are. That's Ericsson in front, and they're battling for position 13. So Rosenquist still on the hunt, trying to close that gap to Riquelme. But whatever Rosenquist throws at Riquelme, as that looks to be, is that a spin for Murray? No, not quite, just running deep into the final corner. Luckily for him, no one in sight. Felipe Nasr miles away from the Scottish driver, but he can't afford to make too many more mistakes. And indeed, Rosenquist has responded, although it is only a 10th that he's taken out of Riquelme on that last lap. And O'Ward still trying to stay within touching distance of the Swedish driver. Still, as I said, good showing here from Team Scotland with 4th and 5th place. is Castro Neves, who's running in 12th position as a result of the retirements ahead and still running somewhat competitively. Now here is Evans, who's sizing up a move against Ericsson, but thinks better of it into the turn 9 chicane. But it looks like it's going to be soon. And is he going to go for a dive? Yes, he does. Down the inside. Whoa. You got to be very committed to make a move stick through there, and that's cost him a lot of time now. That's allowed Latifi to catch up onto the back of him. But back onto the start-finish straight. And it is indeed Riquelme, who's again lost a 10th out to Rosenqvist, but at this rate it's okay for Riquelme because he's still got plenty left in terms of gap between himself and Rosenqvist. Ward, who's still trying to close the gap between himself and Rosenqvist. But Rosenqvist going about his business, hoping that something happens to Riquelme, whether it be a mistake or some form of mechanical failure. But he seems to have the measure over O'Ward, who's gradually slipping away from Rosenqvist. Here's Leclerc down the back end of the field. This is pretty much the pit stop brigade of Lloyd, Hart, Leclerc. Dunn has managed to move his way up into 8th position ahead of Giovinazzi. And Simakowski in 7th behind Felipe Nasr, and here he is. He's got a big gap to try and bridge against Nasr, so I can't see any chance of him particularly doing that, but still a strong result for Team Poland, who have got a car in 7th and 10th position, so double points at the moment as it stands. Here is Giovinazzi though, the sole remaining Team Italian car. Albuquerque trying to chase down Belinsky, seeing if he can try and at least score a point here in this sprint race. Here's Ericsson coming under pressure now from Elvin Evans. He's managed to close the gap back up again, but he's just got to stay calm and collected. We don't want to go for a move here, and he thinks better of it. Obviously learnt from the last time, but he's definitely closing the gap now. Is he going to have a move down into turn 13? He's definitely thinking about it, and down the inside comes Elvin Evans and takes that 13th position away from Ericsson. Now, has he got enough time to get up the road? Castro Neves is there in 12th. I fear it's going to be a bridge too far to find his way into the points. He needed to have found his way through on Ericsson a little bit sooner, I think. But it seems as though Team Wales has got a fairly strong car today. Rosenqvist still ahead and keeping that gap fairly consistent between himself and O'Ward, as is Riquelme. As Giovinazzi dives down the inside of Alex Dunn, takes that 8th position away, and has Dunn got a problem. He's got Belinsky all over the back of him. Dunn goes for the defensive. Belinsky tries around the outside. He's going to go for the inside this time, but no, tucks on in. And Kelvin van der Linde has lost his gearbox now. But here we go. Belinsky all over the back end of done. He's going to dive down the inside. And that's P9 for the Polish driver. There's Kelvin. He's facing the wrong... No, he's not facing the wrong way. Just the part of the circuit. Made it look like it, but here comes Charles Leclerc. And once again... Not quite, but it has Max Hart got an issue because he seems to be struggling quite a lot and losing a lot of time. Alvin Evans has gone through on him now, has he? It looks as though he has. Ericsson's gone through, so... Still rattling away in the lead. Being incredibly consistent with his pace. Pato Award just starting to lose touch of Rosenqvist. It looks as though the rubber band has well and truly broke. But still, great performance so far from Team Scotland. Calmy across the line once again. 12 laps of the 15 completed. And Rosenqvist still trying to see if there's any way he can come through and catch Calmy. It actually looks as though, unless my eyes deceive me, actually quite possibly are. No, they're not. Has Raquelme got a problem? Has Stefan Raquelme got a problem? He's lost so much time. He's gone behind Rosenqvist. Rosenqvist is through into the lead. And it's an engine failure of some sort. We're not looking at Raquelme at the moment, but I can tell you now, he is going down the field. Ah, you can see the car smoking in the background. There he is, once again, for Team Monaco. It happened last season, it's happening this season. They lead a race with dominant fashion, and the car just lets them down. And Raquelme comes to a standstill, and that is race over. Disappointment there for the Monegasque driver, but there still is hope going into the main race later. But that promotes Rosenqvist into the lead. Award is second, and De Resta is in third position. Something I didn't expect to be saying, but there you go. De Resta third, Murray in fourth, so Team Scotland third and fourth, Nazarin's fifth. Albuquerque's been promoted into the points into P10. Castro Neves not too far away, but he's probably going to hope for some form of failure, because the gap there is 3 seconds between himself and Albuquerque. But this is the penultimate lap. Just a lap and a bit to go for Rosenqvist, and Award has lost out big time to Rosenqvist. The gap was, or has gradually been growing. It's now 2.4 seconds between himself and Rosenqvist. Oh, and there's another engine up. It's Murray. So what was looking like a brilliant finish. It's still going to be a good finish for Team Scotland with De Resta in third, but what was going to be even better of a third and a fourth place has quite literally gone up in smoke. That's going to promote Castro Neves into the final point on this final lap. Here's Castro Neves. However, he is under pressure now from Alvin Evans. Alvin Evans has been given the hurry up from the team. There is a potential of one singular point. Evans, who's had pretty strong pace, just not the best of qualifying positions for the Welsh driver in comparison to teammate Ella Lloyd, who's had a brilliant weekend up until the issues that she had, but still going. And that's Sheldon van der Linde, so both cars out. Alpha Leclerc battling there, but back at the front as he comes through the final corner, or the final couple of corners. Here comes Felix Rosenqvist, who wins here for the Division 2 sprint race. O'Ward is second and De Resta is third. Looking further back, it looks as though Castro Neves, yeah, you can see in the background, Castro Neves has managed to hang on to that 10th position ahead of Alvin Evans. So there's still life in the old dog yet. So we wait for the rest of the field to trundle on through. Familio coming through in 15th. Our last driver at the moment is Max Hart in 18th. Here's Ella Lloyd in 16th, and well, could have been a podium, but still a positive look going into the feature race. Now, confirmation there. Felix Rosenqvist wins here ahead of Pato O'Ward and Paul De Resta in third. Felipe Nasr was fourth ahead of Simikowski in fifth. Antonio Giovinazzi was sixth ahead of Roman Balinski in seventh. Felipe Albuquerque was 8th with Alex Dunn in 9th, and Helio Castro Neves takes the final point there in 10th position ahead of Alvin Evans in 11th. Marcus Ericsson was 12th and Nicholas Latifi was 13th. And moving further on down the order, Rafael Villagomez was 14th ahead of Christian Pamilio and Ella Lloyd 16th. Arthur Leclerc 17th, Max Hart was 18th. And on to the retirements, albeit Sebastian Murray and Sheldon van der Linde were classified on that final lap. Stefan Bracalmi was out with Calvin van der Linde, Jose Maria Lopez, Antonio Felix da Costa, Roman De Angelis and Raffaele Marcello all failing to finish. And with that, I hand you back to Chris.
The two main people who are going for the title last season are 1 and 2 in that sprint race. Felix Rosenqvist, well done for that victory, and Pato O'Ward getting some points for Mexico. Very well done there. Paul De Resta for Scotland holding on strong for them. Much needed points for them at this stage in the season. And there are some very, very interesting results there, especially with the two Polish cars in the top 10 and some very upsetting retirements, especially the likes of Jose Maria Lopez and Roman De Angelis. A lot of transmission issues. Let's see if this continues, shall we? As we can now look toward to Division 1. And we can see the standings there. That Shane van Gisbergen has a rather somewhat gap to Kevin Estra in P2, with Chaz Mossert of Australia looking to try and find something on home soil here as he sits in P3 ahead of Alex Palou. Nick De Vries has been a steady Eddie in P5, but it's been a very interesting result for him for sure. The likes of Sebastian Buemi, who's been hoping to try and get some results in whilst he's been promoted to Division 1, hasn't quite found his rhythm yet, but there are some very interesting outcomes here, like for example the Japanese drivers of Yuki Tsunoda and Naoki Yamamoto. They both could argue they could do with more points on the board. It's the same with the Danish outfit and certainly the German outfit. Renenrast only has 1 point, and that's evident on the nation's standings, where New Zealand are leading the way, just 2 ahead of Spain on 58 points in total. And you can see Australia and Hosel there at P4. Let's see what they could do today with Switzerland in P7, and then we can see Germany down in P11, which is in the relegation zone. It's not on the graphic there, but they are staring at it. There's many rounds to go. There's 12 rounds to go, so anything can happen still. One thing that is to be of note, in the New Zealand outfit, Sam Hall has decided that Scott McLaughlin is no longer of service right now, and Scott Dixon is going to take the reign there. And then we can now see what the sprint grid looks like, and much needed for Germany. René Rast starts on pole for the sprint with Charles Weerts in P2, Sebastian Buemi P3, Chaz Mossa of Australia P4, Pascal Wehrlein in P5 with Yuki Tsunoda in 6th, Will Power in 7th, Stoffel Vandoorne 8th, Philip Hansen in 9th with Louis Delatraz in 10th, Carl Kirkwood of the United States of America in 11th, with Kevin Magnussen P12, Jake Dennis 13th, with Scott Dixon for New Zealand in 14th, Kevin Estre in 15th, Nick De Vries in 16th, Alex Palou for Spain, a bit woeful there, in 17th, with Bob Franz in 18th, Daniel Ungadea in 19th, with Naoki Yamamoto in 20th, Shane van Gisbergen, who is our championship leader, in 21st, with Christian Newgaard in 22nd, Enzo Tarvadishkel in 23rd, with Sandy Stubik in 24th, Hugo Ogachupu in 25th, with Simon Pagenaud, our championship defending title holder, in 26th. And once again, over to you, Ryan, for the sprint.
Second sprint race of the day, and it's Division 1 sprint with René Rast on pole and Charles Weerts on second position. And what will we see after the dramas of the Division 2 race? The lights come on, and it's lights out, and we're away racing here again in Melbourne. Rast gets a good getaway, he's up into first, but who's this coming down the inside? There's a big crash in the background, it's Alex Palou. So what has happened there? There looks to have been a degree of contact. Palou shunted from behind. I think, was that his own teammate? You saw a flash of yellow and red, and indeed it was. Danny Unkadea takes out his teammate, and boy, will he not be happy. A second hit there from Ugachuku made sure that the job was done and dusted for the Spaniard. So, as Palou's car is dragged away from the start-finish straight, it is René Rast who leads from Yuki Tsunoda and Chaz Mostert. So, Weerts with a terrible start there, down to 5th. Buemi's lost out from 3rd down to 4th, and Tsunoda's brought his way through. And unsurprisingly there, a penalty for Unkadea. Although I'm not sure what would be worse, the penalty or the walk back to the team garage. Pascal Wehrlein sizing up a move against Weerts for that 5th position, but Weerts still hangs on there as he's found himself in a bit of a Belgium sandwich there. He's got Vandoorne closing in and going for a move down the inside. No, this is Wehrlein. Now on Weerts. Weerts leaves the door open, nearly allows Vandoorne through. And just as a result of that, they've lost a lot of time between himself and Buemi. In fact, they're not even in the same shot almost. But here's Rast leading ahead of Tsunoda. Down the inside. That was a move there for Hansen on power for 9th position. Further on back, here's Lundgaard circulating in last at the moment. Behind Pagenaud, the championship winner, who just really hasn't gelled for some reason in this championship this season. And the team tactics already appearing on the second lap. Vandoorne saying he's clearly faster than his teammate ahead. But he's going to have to try and line up for a move down the inside. Once again, down into turn 13, Vandoorne comes down the inside and takes that position away from teammate Weerts. And that's 6th position. Wirtz already under pressure now from Kevin Magnussen. René Rast sets the fastest lap of the race and extends the advantage to Tsunoda. 1.5 seconds. Is the lead at the moment. Further on back here is Mostert, who's having a good time of things so far on home soil. He's got Sebastian Buemi behind him, but Buemi's coming under pressure now from Pascal Wehrlein. Here is Magnussen, still not quite found a way through on Charles Wirtz, but he's going to want to try and find a way through soon. As you can see, Hansen is starting to coast up onto the back of the Danish driver. Buemi starting to think about going defensive on Wehrlein. Meanwhile, Kirkwood trying to find a way through on Dixon, and he's got a good run. He's going to go down the inside and takes the position away from Dixon, so that's P11. And in the meantime, whilst all that was going on, Wehrlein's gone through on Buemi for 4th. So, in the final points paying position is Will Power. And he's currently tucked up behind Hansen. Here's Chaz Mostert. Seems reasonably comfortable at the moment, albeit hoping he can go a little bit further forward, but still struggling to find anything on Tsunoda, but still able to keep a 1.2 second advantage to Wehrlein. Back at the front, here is Rast, 2 seconds he has over Tsunoda. And here is Van Dorn trying to find a move and find a way through on Buemi, who appears to be struggling in the early parts of this sprint race, and he's trying to go on the defensive, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be a foregone conclusion. And down the inside, there you go, Van Dorn takes 5th place away from Sebastian Buemi. And before Buemi can try and regather his thoughts, he's already got Magnussen all over him. So Magnussen's gone through on Wirtz at some point. Mostert being told to carry on, keep at it. We already saw what was looking like a commanding lead lost by Raikkonen in the first race due to a failure, and it could all happen again in this one. Further on back, this is battling just outside the points. You've got Estra in 16th, and as we go further on down, we have Stuvik there in 20th position. And as I say that, he's not in 20th position because he's now lost his gearbox. So out of the race goes Stuvik, who's been struggling this weekend. Car potentially not set up in the manner that he particularly likes, but still going into the feature race, and hopefully he can see if he can pick some form of points up there, as he won't be anymore in this one. But still back at the front, here's Wehrlein starting to close now on Mostert for that 3rd position. And Mostert is no longer going to be feeling comfortable like he did a lap or two ago. Wehrlein definitely on the charge, and it seems that despite the early season woes of Team Germany, they seem to have cracked it at the moment. But as I say, it can still, with 10 laps to go, all fall apart for Team Germany. So down the inside, and Buemi losing out yet another position, this time to Magnussen. So that drops him down to 7th position, and he's already got Hansen starting to iron him up for that 7th position. So at this rate, Buemi might not even be finishing in the points. And what's going on? Tsunoda's having an issue. He's going into pit lane, so he must have some form of issue. That promotes Mostert, but for not too long, he's back down into 3rd as Wehrlein's gone through. And Van Dorn already on the back of them. So Van Dorn looks, but Mostert's going to try back down the inside. God, I thought he was going to have a go, but he had to back out of it. But that's put Van Dorn all over his gearbox. And the home hero trying to hang on. He tries to go defensive. Van Dorn unable to find a way through yet, but he's going to have another opportunity as they come up to the chicane of turn 9. Van Dorn still unable to get through. And Van Dorn trying down the inside, but he's not going to get the job done there, and that's going to cost him some time and put him back into the clutches of Magnussen. And Magnussen's got a definite run here on the Belgian driver, as he's going to try and go down the inside, and indeed he does, into turn 13, and what was looking very positive for the Belgian driver is all starting to unravel as a result of a mistimed overtake there into turns 11 and 12. And that's just let Mostert off the hook as I say that, and Van Dorn slowing. Van Dorn, who was looking so competitive there, so fast, and it sounds like another transmission failure. So retirement there as Van Gisbergen sends it down the inside. Oh, I think that was Robin Freins. And Van Dorn, who was looking very, very fast, is just going to hope some of that speed, but a bit more reliability, goes his way into the feature race later. But that allows René Rast to continue to extend his advantage. He's now got 6 seconds over his teammate Pascal Wehrlein, and for Topher Smith, the team leader, that's a very good 1-2 you got there. And Van Gisbergen has spun, and that's allowed. That looks like Uchu who's gone round, and I did see someone else just managing to hang on, but less than ideal for the New Zealand and American driver. So there is Van Gisbergen, no front wing. He's going to have to limp that car back to pit lane. It's going to be a tough sprint race for the New Zealand driver, but a chance to try and gather some data going into the main race later. On board now with Wehrlein, who has got a mammoth task to try and overhaul a 6.2 second advantage to Rast, which I can't see that happening myself. Here's Tsunoda fighting his way back through the field after having to pit. Not sure if we quite saw what was the reason behind him having to pit, but again, frustrations there for Team Japan. And that's Dennis. So Jake Dennis with I think that looks to be either a puncture or a suspension failure there. It is indeed suspension failure for the English driver. As his name tumbles down the order. So that allows Delatraz into the top 10. Delatraz incidentally will be starting on pole later. Something, again, I've said a few times already, things I didn't expect to see or commentate on today. As Enzo Tan having a little bit of a lock up there into the second to last corner. He's got what looks to be Simon Pagenaud all over his gearbox. And actually I think that might be his Hansen pit, so there must be an issue there for Hansen. And it's actually Estra who's gone through into 15th position, although he's making a bit of a meal of it there. That's going to allow Enzo Tan back onto the rear end of the Frenchman. Here's Chaz Mostert, who's got a 1.1 second advantage over Kevin Magnussen. And here's Charles Wirtz under pressure now and being passed by Carl Kirkwood. So Kirkwood and what looks to be Buemi, who's had a bit of a regroup, and he's going through, is he? Tries to go side by side but unable to get through. Buemi trying it down the inside and takes the position away from Charles Wirtz. So obviously Buemi dosing it out in the early stages of this race, and he's now starting to pull back through, as Will Power is now the next person to come across Wirtz for that 7th position. But Wirtz in the slipstream, getting a bit of tow there from Buemi ahead. That just hinders Power's chances of getting through on Wirtz this time round, but I'm sure it's going to happen sometime sooner or later. But Wirtz still sticking with Buemi. Here's Chas Mostert, and he's being closed now by Magnussen. It's less than a second. It was 1.1 seconds when we last left him. With some 4.5 laps remaining, there is a race here for the last step of the podium. As Shane van Gisbergen on new tyres and lighter fuel load sets the fastest lap of the race. Now here's Buemi, who's managed to pull away from Wirtz. Wirtz still holding on to 7th ahead of Power. Pascal Wehrlein, who's kept the gap between himself and Rast pretty much the same, pretty equal. This is going to be a decent haul of points for Team Germany. So you see swooping round turns 8 now into 9 and 10. Here's your race leader, René Rast. Who took the lead and has never looked back so far. The rest of the field has fallen by the wayside. And this has allowed Team Germany to operate their way into first and second. But the battle's not quite over yet for that third place. Buemi trying to close the gap to Kirkwood, but I feel it's going to be too little too late for the Swiss driver. But still, given the conditions or the way the car was dropping to the back end of the field quite quickly in those early laps, I'm pretty sure he'll take the result. Delatraz goes through into 9th, and Dixon there stuck behind Tarn at the moment. And Ugochukwu, and at the same time Dixon has an engine failure. So Ugochukwu out with an electrical failure, and at the same time Dixon, as you can see, the engine starting to fall apart there. Estra gets beaten up there by Enzo Tarn, who goes into 10th, Estra down into 11th and out of the points. Water leak there, confirmation for the retirement of Scott Dixon. Here is Will Power, and who's that smoking ahead? It's Buemi! Once again, the car let down, or at least the driver let down by the car, as Buemi was on for another decent result, but that gives the position to Weerts, but Weerts being hampered there by Buemi is putting him under pressure from Power. Now Power's going to have a look into turn 1 and takes 7th position, or 6th position, sorry, away from Charles Weerts. And it's all looking very good also for Team Australia here on home soil. But there you go, Sebastian Buemi once again out of this sprint race. You can only hope for better luck there in the feature race later. So Pagenaud goes through into 15th, still just outside of the points. But that does allow Estra back into 10th position and scoring a point. And Yunkadea has come to a stop. So what has happened to Yunkadea? Philip Hansen sets the fastest lap. And Magnussen's off. What's happening? Everyone deciding they just don't want to finish this sprint race here. Transmission failure for Magnussen. And he retires from that battle for third. So that allows, or lets, Chaz Mostert off the hook there. And barring any issues, I don't know what's going on with Yunkadea. He's just stopped there at the end of turn 1. And now he is dragged away, and it was an electrical failure for the Spaniard. Oh, and Wehrlein's retiring, so Wehrlein out, gearbox failure on this final lap, and it was going to be a 1-2 for Team Germany, but that promotes Mostert up into second and Kirkwood into third. Power in fourth and Weerts in fifth. Absolute drama, all kicking off at once in the space of a lap. But this is the final lap, and Delatraz goes off. Delatraz off. And he was on for 6th position. But I can't see him scoring any points now, and indeed he has been dropped out of the points. That promotes Enzo Tarn into 6th position. Sonoda, after having to pit at some point, is now back into the points. I did not expect to see that. But across the line comes Rennie Rast to win. Mostert second, and Kirkwood comes across the line to finish third. So much to unpack in the last minute and a half. And across the line, there's Estra De Vries just behind Yamamoto in 9th, who again, he was circulating outside the points for a long time. And just everything all starting to fall apart in those last couple of laps has allowed the 2 Japanese drivers to get 9th and 10th. Delatraz is going to cross the line with what can only be described as a Formula Ford car. But he still somehow manages to come out ahead of Van Gisbergen. And Hansen becomes the last driver to cross the line, so only 16 finishes there, as we get confirmation of Rennie Rast being our race winner here ahead of Chaz Mostert and Carl Kirkwood in 3rd. Charles Weerts was 4th ahead of Will Power, and Enzo Tarn was 6th ahead of Kevin Estra for 7th. Nick De Vries was 8th ahead of Yamamoto and Sonoda in 9th and 10th. Just finishing outside of the points was Robin Friends with Simon Pagenaud in 12th, and Christian Lundgaard was 13th. Moving further on down the order, Louis Delatraz crosses the line in 14th position ahead of Shane Van Gisbergen, and Philip Hansen was the last car to cross the line. Pascal Wehrlein was classified, as was Magnussen, Buemi and Juncker Dea, even though they had all retired. But we go on to the official retirements of Dixon, Ugachuk, Dennis, Van Dorn, Stuvik and Palou. And after all that action, it only sets us up for a brilliant 2 feature races ahead, and I'll hand you back over to Chris to give you the lowdown.
A much needed result there for Germany. Well done to Rennie Rast for winning that sprint, and Chaz Mostert on home soil in P2. Very, very good efforts and some very surprising drives, especially from Enzo Tarn, who just seems to somehow get himself in at the right places in the races. But one person that certainly didn't do that is Daniel Yogadeo, who's going to be starting at the back of the grid at the next race because of his teammate collision, which is a rather embarrassing thing to be said of itself. But let's see what he could do for the feature race. But we have the Division 2 feature race first, and we can see how the grid looks for that. Jose Maria Lopez of Argentina is on pole. Alongside him is Jakub Smirkowski of Poland. A very impressive start to the season for the outfit, and this backs that up entirely. Felipe Nasser for Brazil, very, very good qualification in 3rd there with Antonio Fias Acosta in P4. Paul de Resta for Scotland in 5th with Felix Rosenqvist in 6th. Stefan Rakelmi of Monaco in 7th with Sebastian Murray for Scotland in 8th. Ella Lloyd in 9th with Pato Award in 10th. Roman Belinsky is in 11th with Raffaele Marcello in 12th with Philippe Albuquerque for Portugal in 13th. Roman De Angelis for Canada 14th. Max Art 15th with Arthur Leclerc 16th. Alex Dunn in 17th with Christian Pamilio in 18th with Helio Neves of Brazil 19th. Antonio Giovinazzi 20th. Elfyn Evans in 21st. Sheldon van der Linde of South Africa in 22nd with Rafael Villagomez in 23rd. Nicholas Latifi in 24th. Marcus Ericsson in 25th. At the back of the grid, Kelvin van der Linde. And for the first feature race of the day, over to you again, Ryan Ferris.
Time for the first feature race this afternoon. It's Division 2 at Albert Park, and it is Lopez on pole from Smirkowski, and as the lights go on once again, we are go here in Albert Park. It's a great getaway from Lopez. Nasser comes through up into 2nd place, but he's going to challenge for the lead into turn 1. He gets into the lead before turn 1, but Lopez goes around the outside, and that's Belinsky being shoved off. So drama already for Team Poland. Now what can we see here? It looks like contact was already made from Belinsky into the back of someone, and it just seemed like a game of pinball there. So contact was made there. Then you had the Team Canada car behind of what I think is DeAngelis. Is it indeed DeAngelis? Making contact twice, really. But I feel like that would go down as a racing incident, really, because Belinsky sort of triggered that by going into the back end of the Team Wales car. But here is De Resta at the front, and again, yeah, no further action as I'd expected. But it is Lopez leading from Nasr and De Resta in third position. And just behind them is fourth place with front row starter Simakowski in fifth. So not the best of first laps so far as De Resta has a go into turn 11, but that didn't quite work, and that's put him into the clutches of Rosenqvist, who's got a good run out of turn 12, and he's going to have a look down into turn 13, and that looks as though that is P3 for Rosenqvist. Fresh off the back of winning the 500. And hopefully with that sort of confidence he can go forward and win this race, providing he has no ill fortunes with the car's reliability, which has been a bit of an issue for him so far this season. And Simakowski down the inside of De Resta, that's fourth position. Further on back, here's Antonio Felix da Costa now. He's going to see if he can get a fight or find a way past De Resta for that fifth position. Further on back, that's Murray making a move there on O'Ward for ninth position. But back on board with Da Costa, who's still lining up De Resta. Is he going to be close enough for a move into 13? I don't think so. But here is Nasr, who's still hanging on. Indeed, here comes O'Ward back down the inside of Murray, so he retakes that ninth position. But as they come across the line to complete lap 2, still is Lopez who leads, who's just taken himself out that crucial 1 second ahead of Nasr. So Nasr won't be getting the best of slipstreams, and here's Pamilio sending it down the inside for 13th on Castro Neves. Now here is Ella Lloyd, who had a good, or was having a good sprint race until technical problems came along. Hopefully she's going to make up for it here in this sprint, and she's already running well in 8th position and is on the back end of Stefan Rakelmi. But back at the front, Lopez gradually extending as Max Hart has an issue. And someone else, that's Pamilio, with his car smoking. So 2 retirements at the same time, and that looks like one of the Team South Africa cars. So there's Pamilio smoking away, and yeah, Hart retiring but getting collected there. So it is Kelvin van der Linde. Comes around this fast swooping corner, and yeah, it just seemed a bit of a blind. I think he came around in a bit of a blind corner there, unsighted from the car that he was slipstreaming off of, and into the back of him he went. So transmission failure there for Max Hart, engine failure most likely for Pamilio, and van der Linde slowly making his way back to pit lane for a new front wing. back down at the start-finish straight one more time, and this is Ella Lloyd, who's been caught now by Pato Award in 9th position, and she's starting to lose the toe from Raquelme in front. Raquelme, on the other hand, he's trying to find a way through on Da Costa, as we see Pamilio's car finally being cradled away just before pit entry. But here is your leader. And it looks as though they're on the same sort of strategy, potentially running lighter fuel loads than those in front, or those behind them, sorry. Rosenquist starting to pull out a gap on De Resta and trying to bridge the gap between himself and Nazar for second. O'Ward still trying to find a way through on Ella Lloyd, but as we sort of found so far, turn 11 not the best place to make the move, and that's put him under pressure now from Marcello behind, and Marcello goes through into 9th position. Now Raquelme's gone through on Da Costa, and that's allowed Lloyd to catch back up onto the pair of them. But no changes there into turn 1, but there might be something into turn 3. But still, none of them close enough to pose a threat. Back at the front, and Rosenquist still trying to close the gap. Here's Simakowski. Not the best of starts, obviously, on the front row. Potentially running a slightly heavier fuel load than those in front. But he's now trying to find a way through on De Resta, and he's definitely going the right way about it. On board with the Scotsman. Simakowski just behind, and he decides not to go for a move into turn 11. He's potentially saving himself for turn 13. You can see he's definitely closing the gap now, and pops out of the slipstream, and down the inside he goes. Oh, and I think pushes De Resta wide there. Or maybe a mistake at the same time. But already, after being passed by Simakowski, De Resta under pressure with both Raquelme, Lloyd and Da Costa. Lloyd having gone through now on Da Costa for 7th position. So still at the front. Oh, smoke there, and it's Ericsson. So Ericsson, another person retiring from this race already. Only 5 laps completed. And Kelvin van der Linde, after having a front wing replaced in his earlier incident, his engine's also gone wrong. So that's... yeah, you can see on fire there. So already 5 retirements, I make that, in 5 laps. And if that is the case, we potentially won't have any finishes if it carries on at the rate that it has been going. But hopefully some of these cars are a bit stronger than the others. Nazar not quite on the same pace or able to match Lopez, who we believe are on the same strategy. In the background, Simakowski looks to be catching Rosenquist now for 3rd. And that's Evans going through into 15th, just ahead of Castro Neves. So a point there for the Welsh driver. His teammate Lloyd in 7th position, and instantly Da Costa is now lost out to Marcello, so he's now down in 9th position. Nazar being told there that there is potential threat from Rosenqvist from behind. The gap is 1.9 seconds between himself and Rosenqvist, but Smiakowski is only 0.8 of a second off the back of Rosenqvist now, so if those two start scrapping, that's going to help out Nazar for the time being. There's Giovinazzi trying to find a way through on Castro Neves, and that's not quite worked out now, and that's allowed Alex Dunn to get a great run now down into turn 13, but unable to go through. Thought that was a done deal there, but it just seemed as though didn't quite have the momentum that he thought he did. Lopez still pulling away from Nazar. The gap now 3.3 seconds as they come across the line. Here we go. Da Costa, 9th position at the moment. He's got a bit of breathing space now between himself and Pato Award. I'm assuming with this lack of pace he is running quite heavily, so he's going to be running later on into the race before pitting, which should hopefully pay dividends later on in the race. On board with Raffaele Marcello, looking back at Da Costa, who is still hanging on a bit there to the Italian driver. And is there potential for a move now into turn 13? It looks as though Marcello's still got a good drive out to turn 12, and the gap not closing enough for a move. And Marcello hangs on to that P8, but Ella Lloyd just ahead in P7. Coming under threat now, has lost the toe from De Resta. And Smiakowski has gone through on Rosenqvist, so is he going to be a potential contender for this race win today? At the moment, Lopez running very strong in the lead, continuing to extend his advantage over Nazar. So we look further on back. This is the battle for 7th. It's Lloyd, Marcello and Da Costa. Still riding on board here with Felipe Nazar, who's still losing out. Here as Da Costa tries to have a run on Marcello, but it's not going to work there, and that's going to put him under pressure from O'Ward behind. O'Ward's got the run. Is he going to have enough momentum as Marcello goes through on Lloyd, and so does O'Ward on Da Costa? So 2 moves there into turn 13. Marcello up to 7th and O'Ward up to 9th. And there's smoke in the background. Who is that? It is De Resta. So De Resta trying to hang on there to a top 5 finish, but it's all gone up in smoke for the Scotsman. He's going to really need to find his way, and someone's gone into the back of him. There's damage there, and I think that was Riquelme's front wing, was it? No, it wasn't. It is De Angelis. So De Angelis, who already made contact with Belinsky at the start, finds himself once again with contact, and now as a result loses his front wing. But a very, very messy situation there. And was it actually Arthur Leclerc who went into... So Arthur Leclerc went into the back of Da Costa, so Da Costa's lost his rear wing. But this is all getting very messy as the cars continue to scrabble. But the stewards have deemed Leclerc at fault for that, and I feel that is a bit harsh given the situation. But yet again, another retirement. Here is Rafael Villagomez, 19th position at the moment. He'll probably make up a couple of positions. And here is Nicholas Latifi running at the back end of the field at 20th position at the moment, but obviously both were expecting De Angelis and Da Costa into pit lane at the end of this lap. And it's an issue for Murray, so both Team Scotland cars having failures one lap after the other. And what was looking very promising for Team Scotland this weekend, they've been having a strong weekend so far, but the car has let them down. Transmission failure once again. And that promotes Castro Neves back into the points actually, so Castro Neves in P15. Ward has now gone through on Lloyd for P7, so he's on a bit of a march at the moment through the field. Now, what can Smielkowski do in his hunt for Felipe Nasr? The gap at the moment is 2.2 seconds between Nasr and Smielkowski. And here is Arthur Leclerc down the inside of Ella Lloyd. Seemed like a fairly easy move there. But he has got a 30-second penalty. So it is very much damage limitation. And Smielkowski can see Nasr right in front of him there. As we are not too far away from our first pit stops, I don't think. I expect to see the first drivers in some point in the next couple of laps, as Castro Neves found himself in the points and then not too long out of the points again as Gianni Van der Linde goes through into 15th. Back on board with Smielkowski, who continues to close the gap to Felipe Nasr. Here is Riquelme in 5th position. He's trying to hunt down Rosenqvist, who's just further up the road in 4th. The gap at the moment 1.3 seconds to Smielkowski and Rosenqvist, and then further back is 1.7 seconds between Rosenqvist and Riquelme. Lopez has pitted, so first to pit is Lopez, and we thought Nasr would be pitting at the same time, but he's carried on. So where is Lopez going to filter out? Marcello also in pit lane, and Ward goes to pit as well. Felipe Albuquerque, person we haven't really seen much of so far this race, has also gone into pit lane. The issue for Lopez, he comes out behind Alex Dunn. And as I say that, Lopez trying to find a way through on Dunn, but Dunn doesn't allow it. Here is Elvin Evans in 8th position. Ella Lloyd now in 6th position as she continues to drive on this current stint. And Nasr potentially going to pit at the end of this lap. And you saw in the background there, Lopez finally going through on done. But that's going to have cost him some time. So now Lopez is going to have to put in a very, very fast final sector as Nasr does pit from the lead and gives the lead to Smirkowski, and Rosenqvist continues on as well. Nasr is in, as is Riquelme as well. So here comes Lopez out of the final corner. Now how is he going to come out, or where is Nasr going to come out in comparison to Lopez? You can see there he is, he exits the pit lane, is going to come out ahead. Yeah, he just about manages a very, very scrappy pit exit there, but he does come out ahead of Alex Dunn. Although it wasn't the cleanest of pit exits, so he's going to have lost a little bit of time, but hasn't lost too much time. Here is Arthur Leclerc, third position at the moment, albeit with the penalty. Latifi up in 11th position. Obviously he's going up long into this race, with Riquelme just behind, who's not long pitted. And he's going to have a look down the inside. And that is P11. Here's Rafael Villagomez trying to move around the outside there of Latifi, but that's definitely not going to work. Just behind him is Marcello. So still yet to stop is Smirkowski and Rosenqvist, as well as Leclerc, Lloyd, Evans and Giovinazzi. And as I said, that Evans and Giovinazzi now pit, so that promotes Lopez up into 5th position. But still, plenty of work left to go for Lopez. 22 seconds is the gap between himself and Smirkowski, who currently leads. And Rosenqvist only 1.9 seconds behind. And here is your leader. So we're expecting him in soon, and indeed, as I say that, he is coming in this lap. Rosenqvist, I thought he was going to be making it completely wrong there into turn 11, but he manages to scoop it all up, because that would have been quite a fast accident if it was. But he has lost a little bit of time now. So Smirkowski comes into pit lane, and I believe I also saw Rosenqvist entering in behind as well, and no, Rosenqvist carries on. So hopefully, or Rosenqvist is hoping that he's going to have a very good tyre delta to help him along at the finish. Smirkowski has already got a tyre delta a few laps different to Lopez, who now is promoted up into 3rd position. Smirkowski comes out in 5th position, just waiting for it all to update to see through the next sector. But the gap not too big between Lopez and Nasr at the moment. It's less than it was before both of them pitted. And we come through the first sector, which will give us an idea, and it is a little bit of a gap. 4.2 seconds it is between Nasr and Smirkowski. So Rosenqvist in this lap, and that will give the lead back to Lopez, providing that Leclerc also pits. And indeed, that looks as though he is pitting. Or maybe not, he does indeed go on for another lap. But here is Lopez, comes down the start-finish straight. Now where is Rosenqvist going to come out in comparison to the others? There he is, I can see him on pit exit. Is Smiakowski going to manage to come round the outside into turn 1? And he does. We didn't quite see it. The time tower confirms it. And he is closing on Nazar at the moment. Here's Rakalmi. So Rakalmi actually managed to go through, I think, there on Rosenqvist. And Rosenqvist has gone right back through again, up into 5th position. So most likely Leclerc is going to pit at the end of this lap, I assume. And here he is Lopez, having a little bit of a wide moment there coming out of turn 13. That's going to cost him a little bit of time to Nazar. And there is Nazar just behind, and behind him is Smiakowski. And into pit lane comes Leclerc, so that allows Lopez back into the lead. So Smiakowski and Rosenqvist on the fresher rubber compared to those in front. Hopefully for them, the tyre delta will allow them to coast up to the back of Nazar and potentially Lopez as the race goes on. But Rosenqvist with a little bit more work to do. Here's Felipe Albuquerque down the inside on De Angelis, and that gives him P10. Now here's a recovering Antonio Felix da Costa. Remember, at one point we saw him with no rear wing. Whether or not he's going to have to pit again, either that or he's going to struggle quite a bit towards the back end of this race. But on board with our race leader, Lopez, who leads Nazar by 2.7 seconds at the moment. But behind, Smiakowski continues to close the gap after Leclerc having all sorts of issues coming through the second to last corner. Smiakowski continues to close the gap, and it's all pretty much coming together, and he is indeed lapping faster than the leader as he finds himself only 3.9 seconds behind Lopez and 1.1 seconds behind Nazar. So Nazar coming under pressure now from the Polish driver, and Rosenqvist, as you can see in the background, also with fresher tyres than the two in the lead. So it looks as though it's all coming together quite nicely. But it all depends how fast Smiakowski can dispatch of Nazar in front, as he is pretty much with him now. He may need another lap just to be close enough, but he's in the slipstream now as they come across the line, and the gap is now less than a second. Nazar starting to come under pressure. Smiakowski is either going to be looking for a move into turn 9 or turn 13. But unable to get through in turn 9, I don't think. But here is Latifi. There's Lopez, and still in the background, Smiakowski still trying to prod and probe away at Nazar in front. Is he going to get a good run now to turn 12? It looks like he has, but I don't think he's going to be close enough for a move into turn 13. No, he is not, but the gap is still coming down between the pair of them. And with some 10 laps to go, and Nazar, if he believes there is no chance of defending, he may be wise to allow Smiakowski to pass, because squabbling with Smiakowski as Smiakowski goes dazzling inside and takes second position away from the Brazilian driver. Now, hopefully for Nazar, he's going to try and stay on the back end and use the slipstream as much as he can, because here comes Rosenqvist, and he's pretty much almost with Nazar already. And it's a loose wheel for Felix da Costa, so what has already been a tough feature race for him so far is just got even worse for him. But chances of points are still not over, with 9 laps remaining. Ella Lloyd there in 9th position has somewhat struggled so far in this second stint, but obviously pitting later, she has got the luxury of having fresher tyres than some of those ahead. Team giving encouragement to Smiakowski, definitely has pace, and someone who also has pace in the background is Rosenqvist, who is all over the back end now of Felipe Nazar. Lopez, who just needs to try and plug away at these laps in the hope that Smiakowski isn't able to catch and pass him, but he definitely has pace, and he's already taken time out of the Argentine driver. Here is Rosenqvist, who's challenging for that third place position of Nazar, and it's a gearbox issue for Latifi, so yet another retirement. So, and it definitely looks like Rosenqvist is going to be close enough for a move here into turn 13. He's definitely in the slipstream. He's closing rapidly on Nazar in front. He pulls out and goes down the inside, and that's P3 for the Swedish driver. And he certainly has pace. But what can he do about Smiakowski in front, who's on similar age tyres? Albeit Rosenqvist pitted a lap or two later. But you can already see that that gap is coming down between Lopez and Smiakowski. It's down to 2.1 seconds. And Rosenqvist saying there's something wrong with the car. And out of the race goes Rosenqvist. So after such promise, once again, the car letting him down. Suspension failure. And the car just let go into turn 1. Raquelme. All sorts of issues there, and he's in 4th place at the moment, and he's only just coming through. He's some 9 seconds off the lead, and actually he can see Nazar just in front, so I was just getting myself a bit mixed up in the corner locations a bit there. He's not quite as far back as I thought he was, but although Rosenquist is not going to be there for the show, hopefully Smirkowski will be, and he continues to close the gap. Antonio Felix Acosta setting the fastest lap of the race, obviously on very, very fresh tyres and a much lighter fuel load. And he's hoping he's going to find his way back into the top 15 with any chance of scoring any points. Smirkowski actually lost a bit of time in that last sector, so a possible mistake there from Lopez, or is Lopez responding? As the laps continue to tick down, 23 laps of the 29 completed. And Smirkowski keeping it at 2 seconds, so has he used up all of his tyre advantage already? And is he beginning to stall out on Lopez? We shall see on this lap. Here's O'Ward ahead of Ella Lloyd, but it looks like Ella Lloyd's got a brilliant run on O'Ward. Out of turn 2, switches this way and that way, but still unable to go through into turn 3. And the Mexican holds on to 7th position for another lap, or at least for another sector, because it definitely looked as though Lloyd will be going through sometime soon, and indeed Smirkowski has responded and is continuing to close that gap on Lopez with less than 6 laps remaining. Lopez looking like he made a little bit of a mistake there into turn 13. And Smirkowski looked visibly closer. So out of the final corner, here's Ella Lloyd down the inside. She comes on O'Ward down into turn 13, and that is P7 for Lloyd. Leclerc with the penalty, so that will be P6. So great stuff so far, as she already showed in the sprint race yesterday. And further behind, Evans looks to be catching up onto the back end of De Angelis. So as the field makes their way through, Castro Neves back into the points with P15 as a result of some of the retirements further ahead. But this is the battle up front. Lopez now leads by 1.4 seconds to Smirkowski, and I think it was a mistake there for Lopez that's allowed Smirkowski to close just that little bit more. But it looks as though there's a potential that he's responded so far on this lap, because Smirkowski looks like he's a bit further away than 1.4 seconds. Indeed, it is 1.5 seconds, so not massively different. But still, the laps are beginning to tick away. Is Smirkowski going to have enough time to catch and pass Lopez? Is there another sting in the tail of this Division 2 feature race? Nasser fairly comfortable there in P3. Nasser, you can just Raquelme, you can just about see in the background, but I feel that, albeit he is on. It's a loose wheel for Smirkowski. You gotta feel frustrated for the Polish driver, who's driven brilliantly so far in this race, but he's let down by a loose wheel. I don't know if he made contact with a barrier potentially. But I don't think he's going to be able to get back to pit lane, as he has happened so early into the lap. But that has pretty much given or allowed Lopez off the hook, and he's just got to hope that no technical gremlins affect him in the last few laps of this race. Smirkowski's doing well to go as far as he has done so far with that wheel, but as Nasser goes around the outside, so P2 for Nasser, which will most likely give P3 to Raquelme. And Marcello is on a little bit of a march, so whether or not he's going to manage to close up on Raquelme Smiakowski's still going. So if he can get it back to pit lane, there's still chance of some points, and most certainly chance of a fastest lap, as into pit lane comes Smiakowski, holds up Riquelme ever so slightly. That's going to help Marcello in his hunt for third position, with 3 laps remaining. So Smiakowski in pit lane. He's going to come out. He's most certainly going to come out, I'd have thought, inside the top 15. And Albuquerque's got an electrical failure. So out of the race goes Albuquerque from the top 10, I think that was. So that promotes Villagomez into 15th. Here's Riquelme. He's just going to have to will it on home, and it looks as though the pressure from behind from Marcello isn't coming fast enough, so he's going to be reasonably comfortable there in third. He has been lapping slightly quicker than Nazar, but not quick enough to worry him. And Giovinazzi's engine's gone, so that's going to be him out of 10th place. They are dropping like flies with only a couple laps left to go. We're on the penultimate lap at the moment. That'll be another position for Smiakowski, at least, who promotes himself up into P12. And Da Costa back into the points. Now, this is De Angelis, who's behind O'Ward. He's got Evans behind in P9. And just up ahead is Ella Lloyd, who is essentially in 5th position as a result of Leclerc's penalty. Here's Smiakowski going up into 11th position ahead of Alex Dunn. He's got Sheldon van der Linde just up ahead. And with the pace that he's going at, he's potentially got the opportunity to find his way back into the top 10. Here is Lopez, who is on the final lap. He's just making his way out of the first sector. And he's so far done well in looking after the tyres, looking after the car. He came under pressure. He thought he had the likes of Smiakowski and Rosenquist coming from, but tyre or engine car problems has pretty much helped Lopez in his current position. Felipe Nasr also fairly lucky to be in this second position. But as we come through to start the final sector, barring anything colossal, is pretty much going to be a race win for the Argentine driver. He's just got 2 corners to go. And if anything were to happen now, he'd still be able to go across the line and win, but nothing's going to go wrong here for Lopez as he comes across the line to win the Division 2 feature race here in Albert Park. Nasr comes across for the second position, and Stefan Riquelme holds on to that third place. Smiakowski did manage to get past Sheldon van der Linde on the last lap, so he finds himself in 10th position. But it's a great result for Ella Lloyd, who will find herself promoted into 5th position. And I think most likely you also see Evans up into 8th. So a great day for Team Wales, with both cars finishing inside the top 10. Wait, and the rest of the field has indeed gone through, so confirmation of the results of Jose Maria Lopez wins here in Albert Park ahead of Felipe Nasr and Stefan Riquelme. Raffaele Marcello finished 4th ahead of Ella Lloyd and Pato O'Ward in 6th. Roman De Angelis was 7th ahead of Alvin Evans in 8th. Smirkowski was promoted actually to 9th ahead of Sheldon van der Linde, with Alex Dunn being 11th, and Castro Neves 12th ahead of Villagomez in 13th. Moving further on down the order, Alpha Leclerc was classified in 14th following that post-race penalty, with Da Costa still finishing 15th and taking the final point there ahead of pretty much the rest of the retirements actually. Giovinazzi was classified in 16th, with Albuquerque 17th, and on to the official retirements of Rosenquist, Latifi, Murray, De Resta, Ericsson, Kelvin van der Linde, Pomilio, Hart and Polinsky, and a very dramatic race, and potentially a sign of things to come into the Division 1 race. But I'll hand you back over to Chris, who will give you the full lowdown.
A very attritional affair there for the feature race, but well done Jose Maria Lopez for coming out on top there with a lot of points, not only 3 points from pole position but the victory as well. Felipe Nasr of Brazil, another one there. Argentina versus Brazil, good fight to see at the front. And yeah, the Wales cars in Ella Lloyd and Elfyn Evans 5th and 8th. The manager there can be very, very proud of that. And yeah, so many fantastic results. Stefan Riquelme finally showing up for Monaco, whilst Arthur Leclerc makes a fool of himself, one could argue. Pato O'Ward getting points while Felix Rosenquist couldn't. Many things to look into regarding that race, but now we can see what that looks like for the standings as for Division 2 as we exit that part of the programme. And Jose Maria Lopez now leads the standings in Division 2 with Felipe Nasr, funnily enough, right behind him, and Roman De Angelis there still in 3rd with the pole. Jakub Smirkowski in 4th. Some very interesting outcomes here, and some drivers have slipped. Felix Rosenquist is now up to 5th, and Pato O'Ward's now in 7th. And there's some drivers who, the Scottish cars for example, hoping to get a lot of points, just haven't been able to make ground, but the Wales drivers certainly have. And it's a shame about Pomilio. The great car has just been lackluster in retirement, nothing on his skills. And we can look at the nation's standings. Italy are on top in Division 2, only by 3 points to Brazil, and then a further 3 points to Argentina. Is oh so close in this top bracket. Canada only 7 behind Italy, South Africa only 11 behind. Poland and Sweden are both 12 behind it. It's absolutely close, and it's something which I think is going to be a repeating theme throughout this season if things seem to be going like this. Very, very exciting indeed. But now we can see what the final race of today, Division 1 feature, and we can see the grid now for it. Switzerland's Louis Delatraz is on pole, with Philip Hansen of England beside him. Stoffel Bandor for Belgium in 3rd. Will Power his home race in 4th. Yuki Tsunoda in 5th. Pascal Wehrlein in 6th for Germany. Chaz Mostert in 7th, with Sebastian Buemi in 8th, see what he could do from there. And then Charles Wirtz in 9th, with René Rast in 10th. Carl Coker for the USA in 11th, with Kevin Magnussen in 12th. Jake Dennis with 13th, with Scott Dixon in 14th for New Zealand. Kevin Estra in 15th, Nick De Vries in 16th, Alex Palou in 17th, Robin Frines in 18th. Now Naoki Yamamoto is 19th, with Shane van Gisbergen in 20th. Christian Nagel in 21st, Enzo Tarnverdiskel in 22nd, Sandy Stuvik in 23rd, Hugo Gachukwu in 24th. So Simon Pagenaud no longer at the back of the grid because Daniel Juncker now takes that last spot due to the penalty infringement from the sprint. And for the final race of the day, back to you, Ryan.
It's time for the final race this afternoon. It is the Division 1 feature race here in Albert Park, and on pole you've got Delatraz from Hansen. And when the lights go out, we're racing for the last time, and it's a great getaway from Delatraz. Hansen also getting away quite well as well. But who's this? Round the outside is Power, and Power goes for the inside and takes a lead. So Will Power on home soil takes the lead here at the start. Delatraz holds on to that second place, and Sonoda moves up into third. A poor getaway for Hansen. He's down to sixth. But everything going very well for Team Australia, with Mostert down in fifth as well, so both in the top five. Verline and Rast stuck down in 10th and 11th after things looking very good for them earlier on in the sprint. They've got a bit of work for themselves to do. We're on board with Power as they come through into turns 11 and 12, and this is Boemi battling for position, trying to find a way through on Hansen, who's potentially running a heavy fuel load by the way that he's dropping back very quickly. But through goes Boemi up into 6th position, and they're chopping and changing very much. And already Sandy Stuvik with a gearbox failure potentially. He's not even completed the first lap. So across the line, Power leads from Delatraz. Sonoda still there in third. Mostert's gone up into fourth ahead of Van Dorn. And here is Hansen, now under pressure from Charveerts for that 7th position. Stuvik's managed to get back to pit lane as Verline has a lock up there into turn 3. That's put him under pressure now from Alex Palou. And Palou looking as though he's going to try and find a way through on Verline, who's under pressure and about to lose a position from Palou. He's lost a lot of time to his teammate Rast, who's already got a considerable gap further up the road as a result of that mistake. Here is Scott Dixon, who's lining up a move on Charveerts, and he's getting very close enough to do so. Down into turn 13, he pops out and goes down the inside, and that's a position there for Dixon. 8th place. And back at the front, it's all very close, but that looks like an issue for Kirkwood. Oh, and the big old shunt in the background for Kirkwood. So what happened there? He was slowing. So come down to turn 13. And yeah, he just slows down, but what happened? Oh no, it's all done on his own accord, so I thought by the way he went off in the background he was possibly helped, but transmission has packed up for him after only 1 lap completed. Mostert sets the fastest lap in 4th position, and it is all very close up the front still. 1.7 seconds separates the top 3. Delatraz trying his hardest to keep up with Power. But Power is pressing on up front, trying to extend that advantage. And Sonoda starting to close on Delatraz. But that looked like there was a slight mistake there from Power. You heard a squeal of the tyres there. It hasn't seemed to have affected him too much, as he still continues to extend his advantage. Here's Magnussen trying to find a way past Nick de Vries for 13th position. And this is Dennis, and he's off into the barriers. It's a big shunt for Dennis. So what has happened there? It's a transmission failure. And obviously had no engine braking or anything and went straight off into the wall. That's a big shunt for Dennis there. Stuvik is, as you may have seen just on the timing tower just then, was able to get back going, came back to pit lane and is back out running, but chances of points, well, actually saying that, if the Division 2 race was anything to go by, there's still chance for points for Stuvik. And here's Magnussen finally finding a way through on De Vries. A bit of a lock up there from Pascal Wehrlein, who's obviously been passed by Palou. He's now got Magnussen to deal with, albeit a few seconds behind, but it looks as though he's on the charge. And moving up ahead, Ras goes in front of Dixon for 9th. Dixon still unable to find a way through on Charles Weert. Oh, and as I say that, is Van Gisbergen. He's gone out wide. And he's damaged the front wing, almost having a collision there with Ugachuk through the chicane. So that's going to be... Luckily it's happened around about halfway through the lap, so he's not going to lose too much time, but obviously he's having to pit as someone's smoking up in the front, in the distance. Who is that? There's smokes and plumes of flames coming out. And who is it? It's Buemi. Buemi is out, and what on earth is going on there? That's a big old collision he's had. So Wirtz goes around the outside. And he's trying to retire the car, and then he gets punted by Rast. Or was that Wehrlein? I think it was Wehrlein. So Wehrlein's got some front wing damage, and he's plummeting down the order. But I'm not too sure how the stewards would see it, and I think that's somewhat the right call, because there was just a bit too much going on all at once. At back at the front, this is Power, who's still trying to extend, but not quite managed to get out of that 1 second buffer between himself and Delatraz. Delatraz just about hanging in there. He's got Sonoda not too far behind, and Mostert, who's been setting fastest laps. Although Stuvik, having had to pit for whatever mechanical failure it was. Oh, and that's a big crash in the background again! Huge crash. That's Estra, and that looks to be like one of the Team Germany cars, so I think that might be Rast, who's gone into the back of Estra. So has Estra had a failure? So Rast has gone through and has been hit by... So was hit by Enzo Tan by the looks of things. And that was Wehrlein, who's already got damage, I think. Or if he didn't, he's definitely has now. That's a big old crash there. So back on board. So Tan was behind Rast. Rast managed to get through, and essentially I see that as Tan kind of going for a gap that was always not going to be there. And once again, Pascal Wehrlein being the innocent bystander there. But it was a brake failure for Estra. Confirmation there. And so many cars stricken here, there, and the confetti of carbon fibre. I'm amazed there hasn't been some form of red flag thrown, but we're still going. 5 laps completed. Only 5 laps completed of the 29. But the attrition that we saw in the Division 2 race has definitely come along in the Division 1 race in its spades. The back of the front is still very close. In fact, I think Delatraz has closed in a little bit on Power, but is still not allowing Power to get away. But Sonoda's gradually just easing up to the back end of the Team Sweden car, and Mostit is just lurking in the distance. But if the law of averages is anything to go by, chances are one of the four here will not finish this race. But who is it going to be? And another retirement. This time Nick de Vries, no Power. So an electrical failure potentially for de Vries and another retirement. So that's 5 out. 3 also making appearances in pit lane for damage. And only 6 laps completed. Here's Daniel Youngadea, who received a penalty for his involvement in the accident that happened earlier. And Verline, after just coming out of pit lane, is complaining of a loose wheel. And after, at one point, being on course for a 1-2 in the sprint race earlier, Team Germany are just falling apart. But this looks like a run for Sonoda. Sonoda's going down the inside of Delatraz, and he's going to take that second position. Is he? Yes, he does. So, and in doing so, Delatraz is straight under pressure from Mostit behind, who's been lapping very quickly indeed. But now Sonoda's been released to go after Power, but that has taken Sonoda out of the main slipstream of Power. So 1.3 is the gap, and Delatraz already under pressure now from Mostit. Is Mostit going to go down the inside into turn 1? No, he does not. You can see Delatraz taking a slightly defensive line there into turn 1. And a lock up there for Power. Is the pressure starting to get to him? Leading his home race, but very fast charging Sonoda already starting to eat into his advantage. Obviously we still have the pit strategy and we're not quite sure who's on what at the moment, but I could kind of guess with the way that the Team Australia cars are going, that potentially they will be amongst the first to pit. And here comes Pelot down the inside of Wirtz, but that's not a place you want to try and make a move. But here comes Mostit, taking third position away from Delatraz. But will Power still continuing to lead, but across the line, what is it going to be? Frien's making a slight mistake there into turn 13. That's going to allow Enzo Tan to catch up to the back of him, and he's bringing along Lundgaard and Youngadea with the gap at the front down to a second. Sonoda really on a charge, but also helped by a few mistakes starting to creep in with Will Power in the lead. But here comes Mostit in third position. Can he help out his teammate and catch and disturb Sonoda's charge? Delatraz trying to hang on to the Australian, but Mostit showing a sizzling pace here. Now it's expected with Sonoda's pace, they are expecting him to lap sooner, or pit sooner, sorry. The first people we expect to see in around lap 12. Here's Junkadere, and what's going on with him? He's trying to find a way through on Delatraz. Palou has just gone through on Magnussen for 8th. But here is Junkadere, still unable to find a way through on Lundgaard. Further on back, here is Simon Pagenaud. And that's Yamamoto, and that looks like part of his... Is that part of his front wing missing? It is. So he's going to be making a journey into pit lane. And here comes Ronnie Rast down the inside of Scott Dixon. So that's going to be P10 for Rast. And the only real hope for Team Germany in this feature race today. Power, whose lead is now down to just shy of 8 tenths to Tsunoda. And Mostert not really making too many inroads into the Japanese driver. He still somewhat has Delatraz for company. And only just a little bit further down the road is Hansen, who is 1.1 seconds off the back of Delatraz. So Brown once again to complete 10 laps of the 29. Stoffel Van Dorn, a slight lock up there as he comes onto the start-finish straight. He's not too far away from Hansen. And he's got teammate Wirtz just up behind, who's coming under pressure now. Well, he's actually not too far away, actually. So Palou's got a bit of a gap and a bit of a deficit to make up to try and catch Wirtz. But here is Power, who's started to respond against Tsunoda now. He's trying to keep that gap over 8 tenths, it seems. He's trying to see if he can extend it so he's got more than a second from Tsunoda. Tsunoda will most likely get the undercut, depending on how well he gets traffic on pit exit. But Tsunoda stalking his prey, still keeping in the slipstream. Is Stuvik down in 18th position, recovering from the issues of earlier. And Power gradually, and I mean gradually, trying to pull this gap out, but Tsunoda still staying there. And in fact, Tsunoda brings a 10th in down the start-finish straight. But if anything's to go by, we believe Tsunoda's going to be pitting either at the end of this lap or the end of the next. And as you can see in the background there, Delatraz still 1.1 away. Actually, no, he's now only a second away from Hansen. So Delatraz and Hansen a second away, and he's just about staying is Delatraz within a second of Mostert. So this is all very much to play for still, with the various pit strategies. And who's that slowing? It's Mostert. Mostert from third position. That sounds like as it is a suspension failure for Mostert, and that is actually the awkward way that he pulled off. Then did slow Hansen down a little bit, and it also did upset Delatraz. But disappointing stuff there for Team Australia. But they still lead this race with Will Power. Palou looking to blink this time round and be amongst the first to pit on strategy. But Sonoda carries on for a lap. So Vietz and Palou are in, so is Magnussen and Rast. As we look to Delatraz, who's back in third position as a result of Mostert's retirement. But still, back at the front, Sonoda unable to really find a way through on power. He takes a 10th there and then loses a 10th there. And Rast goes off. He's just come out of pit lane and he spins. He's lost his front wing as well. I said he was Germany's only hope, but I think all hope has been dashed now for Topher Smith. And it'll be back to the drawing board and a bit of a rethink. The upgrade windows are not too far away. And at that point it will be where we start to see a real shake-up on how the cars perform from this point onwards. But Sonoda still closing. Delatraz pits from third position. The rest of the drivers continue on. And Sonoda really starting to push now. This is Hansen looking back to Van Dorn. And here is Yamamoto going slightly wide. Obviously, he's had to make a bit of an early pit stop for a front wing change, so that's going to affect him later on in the race. He may have to stop again. But so far, we have 6 cars retired. Lundgaard now in pit lane and just exits. But here is the battle back at the front, and Sonoda's gradually starting to eat away at Power's advantage. But now, are we going to see one of these two, if not both of them, pit come this time around? As it come around at the second to last corner, what are we going to see? Here's Hansen in third position. He's being chased down by Van Dorn still, and the lead two still continue. Now we thought they'd be pitting early, but they're still carrying on, as does Hansen and Van Dorn in the background. Now, just up ahead, they've got lap traffic, and that is, I believe, Rast Pagenaud up in 8th. He must be getting a nosebleed at this point, because he's not really been at the races at all so far this season. But he carries on. The sole remaining Team France car after the brake failure of Estra. And either somewhere has been a mistake or Power's now starting to respond, as he's now taken a few tenths out of Sonoda. But which one of these two are going to blink first? Most likely, if Sonoda pits, he will get the undercut over Power as long as he doesn't come out in traffic. But they still continue on for yet another lap. Here's Enzo Tan, who's up in 5th position at the moment, but he's about to be passed by Juncker Dea almost. And Hansen pits from 3rd position, is it? Or is he going on for another lap? No, Hansen enters pit lane, Van Dorn carries on. So Hansen, Uguchigu, is also in pit lane. Where is Hansen going to filter out in comparison to Delatraz? And Hansen comes out behind Delatraz, but with a few lap younger tyres. And that should help him in his pursuit for this race victory today. As the front runners Power and Sonoda continue on. As we're now past half race distance. Here's Van Dorn in third position now. Another driver who is yet to stop. And Sonoda trying to do the undercut on Power. Is it going to work? As there's Lundgaard going wide, but I think we saw for a moment then a pass for position. I didn't quite catch who it was. I think it was Magnussen on Viet. But Power carries on. Sonoda going for the undercut. Here's Viet. And has he got an issue? He's now under pressure now from Dixon. So Sonoda and Van Dorn both pit. And here comes Dixon down the inside of Charles Viet. And takes 10th position away from the Belgian. And Zutan is also in pit lane. And here comes Delatraz through the order, and it looks as though he's back up into 4th position, but Sonoda came out before Delatraz. So Team Switzerland's hopes of an undercut not quite worked out. We've got Danny Juncker in 3rd position, and there is Sonoda and Delatraz. Delatraz's tyres would be up to temperature, but it seems like Sonoda's just got pace out of the box. And he's got to come out into fresh air, which is perfect for the Japanese driver. And so Power has got a lot of work to do. Here's Juncker, who's just up the road. He's also not stopped yet. So expect to see a charge through the field, as he'll be on much fresher tyres than some of his competitors. And Shane van Gisbergen, after having issues earlier, he's got more problems. The car has given up the ghost, and yet another retirement. But whilst that's all going on, Power pits. So Power pits from the lead, and how is he going to fare compared to Yuki Tsunoda here in 3rd position? Juncker also pits from 2nd position. Now down the start-finish straight, here comes Tsunoda. And where does he fare compared to Power? Power's come out of pit lane now, so there he is. And the attempt at an undercut hasn't really worked here, but Power slow out of pit lane. Tsunoda's all over the back of him. Tsunoda needs to pounce now if he wants any chance of this race win. Power's tyres not quite yet up to temperature. You've got Delatraz lurking in the background. But Power definitely putting the hammer down. And he's extended a couple car lengths on Tsunoda, but can Tsunoda have a good run through this section, get a slipstream down into turns 11 and 12 and getting into turn 13? It's looking like Power has just lit the car up. And he is just disappearing off up the road. He's already pulled out 7/10 of a second on Tsunoda, so Tsunoda's going to have a bit of a rethink. Whilst all that was going on, Van Dorn has gone through on Hansen for 4th position. So what has happened there? Hansen, who was looking very strong in the early parts of the race, and a lock up there as I say so. For a run back, here is Juncker in 11th position, so he should have really good pace now on low fuel but very new tyres. He's had a lap of getting them up to temperature, and now we should hopefully see some action from Younger there. His teammate Pelot in 8th position is just 2 places ahead of him. 3 places. As he's got Freins and Weerts battling together. Weerts, who was briefly outside the top 10, is now back up into 9th. But he's under increasing pressure from Robin Freins behind. And Freins got to run. Is he going to make a move? He's going to try and move, but he ain't going to go through. And that is going to put him into the clutches of Younger and Younger has got to run on him. Down into turn 13. A little bit of a jink out to the side, but Younger is going to have another look. And down the inside goes Younger for P10. Next person to pick off Freins is Enzo Tan. So Enzo Tan Van Iskel well in the slipstream now, coming into turn 1. Freins going on a defensive, but Tan comes down the inside. And 11th place it is for the Thai driver. Back at the front, Delatraz, who's lost a lot of time now to the front runners. They're just on a different planet compared to the rest of the field, it seems. But Sonoda, who's ducked out of the precious 1 second gap to Power. Power is really, to quote, putting the power down as he continues to extend his advantage over Sonoda. It's almost 1.5 seconds now it is. Here's Younger Dare trying to find a way through on Charles Weerts once again. He's just going to be patient and he's going to have a go coming now down into turn 13. So here's Van Dorn in the background. There's Hansen, who seems to be dropping off the pace here in this second part of the race, which we didn't expect to see. Dixon being informed that both Spanish cars behind are indeed very fast. One being sparring partner Pelot. And so Dixon is going to want to try and find a way past Magnussen rather sooner rather than later, because he's got 2 hard charging Spanish cars coming at a rate of knots. So as they come through turns 9 and 10, actually no, this is turns 6 and 7 actually. Now that's 9 and 10. And Pelot, already understanding that Younger is on a much faster strategy, has said he's not going to try and hold up his teammate too much. And here he is on the run down the inside, and it seems to be formation flying there for Team Spain. And then hopefully for Pelot, his teammate can go and pester the likes of Dixon and Magnussen up ahead, which will hopefully open the door for Pelot. So 21 laps completed of the 29, and this second half of the race has really flown by after the chaos and carnage of the first 5 laps. It is somewhat mellowed down, but I still feel there is definitely a twist in the tail to this last race of the evening. Delatraz being gradually hunted down now by Van Dorn in 4th position. and possible chances of a podium after a disappointing sprint race. Could this podium be slipping away from the Swiss driver? But Power, who's been putting on a real stint in this second stanza, has just been pounding out lap time after lap time and extending that advantage. Tsunoda, who thought he was odds on for an undercut, and it just didn't quite work out for him. And as he said, should have lapped or should have pitted a lap sooner just to kind of have a more powerful undercut against Power, but didn't quite work out for the Japanese driver. But still a good performance from essentially the rookie to this championship. And indeed, Van Dorn is gradually making up ground against Delatraz. And that's Dixon going off, so Dixon wide. I think that is at, yeah, that's into turns 9 and 10. He had Younger Dare down the inside, and he just got off onto the dirty marbles. And that is exactly what Alex Palou wanted from his teammate, and he's right on the back of him. He's trying to go through here, but we haven't seen any moves pulled off here, and Palou thinks better of it. He's going to survive into turns 11 and 12 and have another go into turn 13. Palou with a great traction out of turns 12, and he's in the slipstream. He's pulling out, and down the inside he comes on Dixon. And that's P8 for Palou. Junkadere, his next target is Magnussen for P6. And I think if he gets through on Magnussen, he'll be lucky to close in on Hansen, but there's still a handful of laps left to do so. But Power continuing to extend. 2.1 seconds is the advantage to Tsunoda. And Power's going out! Power with a retirement! Out he goes with a gearbox! So I said Power was pushing hard, but was he pushing too hard? As the fragile gearbox that is the dreaded Nations Cup gearbox is starting to make a return at this race. And Tsunoda takes the lead. I said that there was still a potential sting in the tail, a twist to this race, and that certainly is one of them. So that means, as it stands, Delatraz still on for a podium, but here comes Junkadere down the inside on Magnussen. That's 5th place for Junkadere, and he still has time to catch Hansen. It will be a tall order, a big ask for the Spanish driver, but he is showing great pace. Somehow Sandy Stuvik still has the fastest lap. But on board with your race leader, Tsunoda, who leads by 8.1 seconds to Delatraz. Delatraz under a lot of pressure now from Stoffel Van Dorn, who is only 4 tenths off of the Swiss driver. As we look to Charlevets, and Van Dorn has gone through, so Stoffel Van Dorn takes 2nd position away from Louis Delatraz. And Delatraz could potentially find himself under pressure from Hansen, who isn't too far behind. So this podium still isn't quite safe for the Swiss driver, as he's got Hansen closing in on him, but is Junkadere going at a pace that's quicker than Hansen? soon find out. The gap between Hansen and Junkerdare is 3 seconds. And it just seems as though Junkerdare may just run out of laps. Here is Pascal Wehrlein, who is still in this race. He's definitely had his adventures. And you pretty much have both Team Germany cars, the Wehrlein and Rast, the last cars circulating. It will be nil points for Team Germany. But Team Japan going very well at the moment. Bookending the timing tower with Yamamoto down in 15th. But here's Freins who goes wide. So wide for Freins. Wirtz thought about having a look. And here comes Ugachuk into 11th position, and he manages to get the move done. So we haven't seen many moves stick going through there along the curve between turns 10 and 11. But obviously Ugachuk hasn't read the rulebook or the script and has gone through. So 11th place. But back at the front here is Van Dorn. Delatraz trying to hang on as much as he can to that third position. You can see Hansen is closing. Sonoda happily in the lead with 9.2 seconds over Van Dorn, but this is where it's all at, the last podium positions. Junkerdare pushing hard, making mistakes, and it just seems as though it's going to be too little too late for the Spanish driver, but anything can happen between these guys. 26th position to 15th, he's kept his powder dry and allowed the strategy to work out for him. But at the front here is Sonoda, with only a few laps remaining. He's just got to nurse his car home, and it'll be a victory for Team Japan. Further on back, Scott Dixon in 8th position, who's got just behind Enzo Tarn for company. Whether or not Tarn is able to do anything about it, he's still within second of Dixon. Is he going to manage to upgrade his 9th position to an 8th position? So here's Delatraz, who's just about losing touch with Van Dorn. He's lost that second. Well, I'm not too sure what Rast is complaining about. It was him, after all, who did spin on the exit of pit lane and cost himself a broken wing and another trip back to the pits. But it's looking all very peachy here at the front for at least Sonoda and Van Dorn, but when we come to cross the line, it will start the final lap, and Delatraz is very much under pressure now from Hansen, who is within a second of the Swiss driver, and he's got a lap and a bit to try and find a way through. Junkerdare still, he'll be happy with this result, but he can see the podium positions just up ahead, so there'll be some form of dissatisfaction from the result. But here's Yamamoto under pressure now from Sandy Stuvik. And Stuvik, who attempted the overtake and it didn't work, is going back down the inside and takes 15th position and that final point away from Yamamoto. Back at the front, has Hansen made a slight mistake there, as the gap is still approximately a second. He needs to be just that little bit closer. I think more than likely it will be a move into turn 13 if he gets the chance. But through this sector, he's dropped time to Delatraz. He's out of that major slipstream of 1 second. And it looks as though, barring any mistakes, Delatraz is safe for this podium. But there are still a few corners remaining. This is your race leader, Sonoda, who comes through the final sectors. He's just got 2 corners to go. And barring any mistakes, Yuki Tsunoda rounds the final corner and is on his way to cross the line and win here in Albert Park for the Division 1 feature race, and a brilliant performance from the Japanese rookie. Across the line also comes Van Dorn and Delatraz holding on to that podium position and makes amends for the mistake that he made in the sprint race. Hansen was so close, as was Junkadea. We see the rest of the field come through. Another good result there for Enzo Tan, who manages to secure 9th position. Pagano managing to get 14th position. And Stuvik getting that final point ahead of Yamamoto as we wait for the tail end Charlies that are the 2 Team Germany cars. And across the line they go, and I'm sure they can't wait to be packed up and gone from Albert Park. Confirmation of the results, and Yuki Tsunoda takes his first win here in the championship ahead of Stoffel Van Dorn in 2nd and Louis Delatraz in 3rd. Philip Hansen was 4th ahead of Daniel Junkadea and Kevin Magnussen in 6th. Alex Palou came home in 7th ahead of Scott Dixon, and Enzo Tan was 9th, with Robin Freins taking the final place in the top 10. Hugo Ugochukwu was 11th ahead of Charles Wirtz, and Christian Lundgaard was 13th. Going further down the order, Simon Pagano was 14th ahead of Sandy Stuvik in 15th, who took the final points paying position ahead of Yamamoto in 16th. Pascal Wehrlein and René Rast round out the final finishers, and we go to our many retirements in this race. Will Power retiring from the lead, with Shane van Gisbergen, Chaz Mostert, Nick de Vries, Kevin Estre, Sebastian Buemi, Jake Dennis and Kyle Kirkwood all failing to finish. And after so much drama in that final race, and indeed this entire race weekend, I hand you back over to Chris, who will give you the lowdown on all the scores on the doors.
What absolute heartbreak for Australia on home turf to have a double DNF in the feature race, especially when both of them are in very, very good points earning positions. Absolutely gut-wrenching. Same again could be said for Germany. Just so much bad luck going into this. And hopefully things can turn around after the upgrade window, but hey, well done Japan, well done Yuki Tsunoda for a victory, much needed for Japan. It's a very, very interesting result, and what a fantastic drive from Daniel Junkadea, starting at the back of the grid and getting to P5. Absolutely, I mean, attrition has helped him, but yes, even so, well done. And we can now see what this has done to the championship. Shane van Gisbergen no longer has that really huge healthy gap. It's only now 7 to Chaz Mostert, with Stoffel Van Dorn as well only 7 behind. Yuki Tsunoda's victory today puts him only 9 behind Shane van Gisbergen, in 4th in the standings, with Alex Palou with 39 points. Daniel Junkadea actually did better than Alex Palou in that feature race, therefore he's only 2 behind his compatriot. Some very interesting headlines and storylines to look at this. Enzo Tan nearly in the top 10, nearly alongside Philip Hansen, which is quite an interesting dynamic in itself. Some drivers, again, wishing they got more points from this weekend. Sebastian Buemi will be 1, Simon Pagano will certainly be 1, and the 2 German drivers are certainly 2 as well. And we can now look to see what the nation standings looks like, and Spain are on top by 10 points to New Zealand. A bit more strung out in this championship compared to in Division 2, but Belgium there in third, but Australia in fourth, France in fifth, Switzerland are in P6, even though Japan won today. They're just outside that BOP window, so they should be able to take that going in to the next race. And so many interesting lines there. Germany will definitely need to have a bounce back, as does the USA, and hopefully Denmark as well. Well, that is round 3 in the books. We now head to New Zealand for round 4, but before then there is an upgrade window now going to be open. 3 races have gone by, money has been collected, and now teams can decide whether they can invest in power, downforce or reliability. Considering there's been quite a lot of breakdowns, I wonder if people will go down that route, but we'll find out in a fortnight's time. I am Chris Cavaney, your host. Thank you so much for watching. Ryan has been your commentator. Thank you to him as well. And this is the Nations Cup. Signing off.